It's the early 90s. Shaquille O'Neal is a big deal. So, like with many sports stars, they were going to make a game based around him. And what sort of a game would that be? Well, a basketball game. That was the idea, and it's not an unusual one. Look at the PGA games. They had Tiger Woods front and centre for a vast majority of their existence. Hell, maybe they could do a yearly basketball game promoted by Shaq. Probably would have done pretty good, but that's not what happened. You see, Shaq was apparently a big fan of games like Mortal Kombat, 2D fighters. So somehow, the end result was a 2D fighter called Shaq Fu. Now you've read the title of this video already, so you know we're not going to be looking at the original Shaq Fu, but since it's not on a PlayStation system, it's important to know a little bit about it before we get into the PlayStation 4 sequel. And why? Well, it's considered one of the worst games ever made, and very famously so. This is always popping up on lists of the worst games of all time, which is particularly interesting because reviews at the time, according to Wikipedia at least, were relatively positive? I don't know if positive is the right word. They were mixed reviews, but average. Based on the reviews, you should have had some good fun with this game. Just a typical early to mid 90s 2D fighter, nothing special, not adding anything new. But over time, whether they've played it or not, people have learnt to hate it, and the general conclusion is, while it looks pretty nice and has good animations, it's a terrible fighting game. So who in their right mind would have guessed that in March of 2014, an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign began for a sequel to Shaq Fu? The goal was $450,000 US. It sounds crazy, but it hit it, and in only a couple of months as well. It exceeded the goal and got to around 475,000, just under or so. Obviously people wanted it, at least enough to spend their hard-earned money just on the development of it. It took a couple of years, but finally, this was the end result. Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, or Shaq Fu 2 if you want. So as I said, the first game was a fighting game, one-on-one fighter like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. But this one takes a different form. It's a fighting game, but this time it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up game like Double Dragon or Streets of Rage. And who saw this coming? A sequel to one of the worst games ever made? Although to be fair, I've played Shaq Fu, and it's bad, but I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. Maybe that's a controversial opinion, I don't know. But it seems like there's a lot worse out there. I can think of a whole bunch of games straight away which I'd much rather less play than the original Shaq Fu. Don't take what I'm saying the wrong way though. I'm certainly not a fan of the original game, and the last thing I ever expected to see was this. Now, let's be reasonable here. How bad could this one possibly be? At worst, it's probably still going to be an improvement over the original, and they've done away with the original's genre, and they're not doing fighting like I said, so perhaps they've completely taken it in a new direction and we'll get something good. Let's take a look. Now I'll say it right off the bat, it is a better game than the original Shaq Fu, even if I didn't think the original was that bad. It is bad, this isn't that bad, not even close, so take that as you will. Now while it's thought of as a sequel, in reality it's not. It's more like a remake or reimagining since it's a whole different genre now. The story, if you cared about the story of this at all, is completely different to the original.
My story is convoluted and full of holes, so pay attention. It begins in the land of dragons, legends, and General Soul's chicken. I started out like any other Chinese orphan. The only clue to my identity was a mysterious birthmark.
Having no relation whatsoever, and that's probably for the best, or well, it could be for the best, but the problem here is everything about this in terms of storyline, and setting is just cringe-inducing. I think that's the best term I can use to describe this.
I knew you were a demon. I told Yeye. You know in that scene in your low-budget movie, your eyes were glowing like the fires of hell?
That was night vision.
Whatever. Show yourself.
It's just not funny. And it's really trying its hardest to be. Almost everything that's said in the game is supposed to be some kind of joke.
That feels good. Why do these guys want to kill you?
I'm not the man you think I am.
I knew it.
You did?
I seen you looking at me when I do them high kicks.
What? No, I'm just watching your technique. Ah!
Sometimes I can tell what the joke is and it's just not making me laugh. And sometimes I don't get it. Like one of the main jokes in this whole game is that Shaq is apparently Chinese.
What up, dog?
My name is Shaq Fu. I'm a poor Chinese rickshaw driver from a town called Hong Lo. I made a promise to my dead mentor Yeye that I would kill you. Prepare.
All the cutscenes are very well animated, kind of echoing the original, but man, they are awkward. To very quickly sum up the story, there's an old Chinese master who taught Shaq to fight. It turns out he's a guardian of mankind or some crap like that, and now you've got to kill some big evil guys who are trying to take over the world.
Taco.
Jesus Christ, what am I watching?
How did you find me?
You kept tagging yourself on Instagram. Was like a trail of cyber breadcrumbs.
No matter. I'll twerk you into next month.
You'll treat it as some fairly typical beat-em-up gameplay. It's side-scrolling, but with 3 dimensions of movement, as is typical. You got varying enemy types, combos, special moves, destructible objects with health and bonus items, weapons you can pick up, and boss battles at the end of each level. Each boss battle being a demon disguised as a celebrity. And from what I'm aware, this game had to be delayed for licensing reasons, so I'm guessing these celebrities were supposed to represent real people, but I can't quite put my finger on who most of them are supposed to be. They all seem to be a generic stereotype of certain types of celebrities.
Jesus, where's Babyface?
He dead.
The birthmark.
What the hell's all this talk about my damn birthmark?
The prophecy. But she killed you.
I guess not, but I'm coming for you.
All things considered, the gameplay is actually pretty solid. You're not going to experience anything new, but it's not a broken game by any stretch of the imagination. There are only 6 levels, but they're pretty varied, to be fair, and they have some interactable elements unique to each level, which can be pretty fun as well. A lot of the weapons you can get are fairly creative too. Using a keg as a bowling ball and it smashing through a bunch of enemies is actually pretty satisfying. And sometimes you can get special suits for Shaq to wear, which give you special powers, like Shaqtus.
Shaqtus.
The problem with this though is it's extremely overpowered. These moments are fun for the first couple of minutes, but end up boring because you're just smashing through waves and waves of enemies with nothing really stopping you. There doesn't seem to be a limit, it just ends after a certain point once you've killed a bunch of people. It's just a segment of the level. You can't choose when to get these special suits, so they don't really come in handy at all.
That feels good.
There's not much more to say really. You've got a lot of enemies to smash your way through. That's probably the one thing that stands out, is there are waves and waves and waves of tons and tons and tons of enemies. Probably too many. I'd have rather less enemies that were a little bit more interesting rather than just waves and waves of generic goons to smash through. What really sucks though is there's no 2-player. None at all. It's a beat 'em up game and there's one character to play as and one player. It's a beat-em-up game where you can play on your own, and that is it. Considering this genre came from the arcades, and a big part of it was playing with your friends, it's a real disappointment to see that there's no 2-player option. Even if it just gave you a palette swap of Shaq, I'd have been satisfied. At least I could have sat down with a friend and played through it and had a bit of fun. Just play some music in the background or listen to a podcast. That's what I think you should do when playing this game. Ignore the story, ignore the attempts at any jokes. Focus on the gameplay, and it's not that bad. It's basic, sure, but it's okay. I picked this up on Amazon for something silly like £7 or £8. It's under £10, I'm sure, in the UK right now, and I imagine it's the same sort of price range all over the world. It's a cheap game, and for the price range, I can't really complain. I'd go as far to say, to kill an afternoon, and for the price, it's actually pretty good. If you're looking for a game you can beat easily in an afternoon, this is it. It's just a shame you don't have the multiplayer to go off as well, because that seems to be a main part of a lot of beat-em-ups. Almost every beat-em-up I have, I've played in co-op. It's a lot more fun that way. Before I start rambling on again about how it's a good game for its price and whatever, you've seen the footage. You know what to expect from this. I've explained it as best I can. It's not a major risk in terms of its price for a purchase, but I'm sure you can make your own mind up as to whether or not you're going to enjoy this game. I think that about sums it up for Shaq Fu 2 or Shaq Fu: A Legend Reborn, whatever the hell you want to call it. We'll put this away. I'll never play it again, and I imagine it'll be the same for most of you that decide to play it. You'll play it, you'll beat it in a day, and it will be done. Put that back on the shelf. We'll move on to something else. I'm feeling PS2 next time. I'm not sure why, but I want to get some PS2 in again. I've added a fair few games to my collection in the past few weeks on PS2, and there's a few I want to try out, so I may as well record the footage and make a video of them. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll pick something out for next time, and it'll come along a little quicker than last time. Had a little bit of a break for Christmas and New Year, but I'm right back on it and looking forward to playing and recording some more gameplay footage.